Hey friend, in today's watercolor tutorial, I'm going to be teaching how to paint this watercolor landscape of Diablo Lake in North Cascades National Park in Washington State. Without further ado, let's get painting. For today's tutorial, I'll be using Cobalt Turquoise Light, Viridian Green, Prussian Blue, Olive Green, Perylene Green, Payne's Gray, and VanDyke Brown by Winsor Newton. If you don't have Perylene Green, you can simply just mix up some olive green, Prussian Blue, and a little bit of brown to get this like really nice like dark green. If you don't have VanDyke Brown, you can just mix burnt umber and a little bit of black. And if you have any questions on color mixing, if you don't have a certain color that I use in a tutorial, just comment down below and I will definitely give you a little bit of a combination you can use to get a certain color that you need. I also am going to be using some white gouache for some highlights with our mountains. And then I've got a size 2, size 6, and size 16 round Princeton brush. And the horizontal tape down paper here is a size 5 by 7 inches. To get started, I want to begin with my sky, and I'm just going to take my large size 16 brush and just do a nice wash of water for about, I would say, the top third of the painting. So just above halfway. And from here, after I've got that nice and saturated, I'm just gonna tap lightly with my size 16 brush into our Prussian Blue and just add a few bits of Prussian Blue, leaving some white negative space. So you can see I'm kind of leaving a little bit of white here just to mimic a cloud. I'll do a little bit more Prussian Blue in this area. And again, just kind of a really loose brushwork here, kind of slightly rounded. I'm gonna get a little bit more blue. It's always good to start light and then you can slowly go back in and layer it up if needed. Okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and allow our sky to dry, and when we come back, we can start our mountains and our lake. Okay, so while my sky was drying, I literally went and made a cake and threw it in the oven. And I didn't see this bloom starting to form, but I thought it would be a good opportunity to just show how to kind of erase it. And I'm going to be using a size 16 brush for this. And I simply am just taking a little bit of water on my brush. It's a very light amount of water. And I'm simply just going to use pressure with my brush and just go back and forth over this bloom and add, again, just a little bit of pressure to kind of move that watermark around and just kind of buff it out a little bit. From here, I'm just going to take some plain water again and then just add that alongside this watermark slightly and just kind of smooth it out with some clean water. All right, so it didn't fully take it away, but it just kind of buffed it out slightly, which is all I was really hoping for. That's totally fine. Okay, so now that that is all set, I want to take my size 6 brush and just do a really light sketch. And for the sketch, I'm going to use just some watered down olive green. And I'm going to start first with our center mountain, which I'm going to start just a little bit off center towards the right. So there's my starting point, just marking that off. And then from there, I am just going to slant it diagonally towards the left. And then I'm going to give it another little kind of dash that's slightly angled, and then do another diagonal sloping line towards the left, and then another little dash, just like so, and a small little slope towards the left. So almost looks like a slight zigzag motion, if you will. Feel free to pause this sketch line at any point, or the sketch process at any point, so you can just take your time with that. And then from here, I'm gonna go slightly towards the right and stop, and then just do a rounded hill, just like that. Okay, next up, I want to do a little bit of a silhouette of a larger mountain that's closer to us. And I'm just gonna start with this really subtle, slight curved line, just like so, coming off towards the left, and then round it, almost like a partial rainbow curve. And then from there, it's gonna slope towards the right and go slightly inward. From here, I'm going to bring it towards the left, make a little dash vertical line like so, and then bring it towards the left again. Hi, Mira. My dog's in here if you hear any background noise. She loves to hang around while I film. And frankly, all the time, because she's a Velcro dog, so. All right, so from here, I'm going to do another partial rainbow curve. And then a secondary one, almost like just two smaller ones here. And then from there, I'm just going to elongate this area towards the right, just a hair bit, and then just bring it slightly swoop downward towards the left, and just doing a really simple kind of rounded, curved coastline, if you will, because this is where the mountain meets the lake down below. All right, and then up towards the top here, there is another little partial mountain in view. So I'm just gonna sketch just a slight line here, just like that. Alrighty, and then next, I want to start our other mountain that's on this opposite direction here. I'm going to start with a rainbow curve, just like this. And then I'm going to elongate it slightly upward towards the right. So I just have this kind of curved brush stroke here. Then I'm going to slope this mountain area inward, just like that. And then the coastline, or waterline, because it's not the coast technically, this is a lake, is just going to be slightly jagged over here. And then I'm gonna do a slightly angled dash line like that, do another slightly angled dash, one more dash down below connected to that previous one, and then just slope the water line slightly towards the right, just like so. Lastly, second to last actually, we're gonna have another little, almost like pop of the mountain kind of poking inward towards the lake here. And I'm just doing a really rounded curve just off towards the right here. And then this is just a subtle point that kind of eventually just goes downward, just like that. And then in the lake, we do have a couple little islands, which I will mark off just by doing a little bit of green here. It may get covered once we add the lake, but we can just re-add it in if it does get covered. So not a huge deal. But just so I don't forget, we do have a couple little little pine tree islands in the middle of the lake. I'm just going to take a little bit of watered down VanDyke Brown and just do a really loose wash of VanDyke Brown on this far mountain off in the distance. And I'm going all the way up to that water line of our sketch and just painting on the inside area. All right, and then from here, I want to take some Perylene Green, and I just want to add a few loose brush strokes into the wet VanDyke Brown, mainly towards the bottom area and slightly towards the right. And again, I'm just keeping this super loose, adding a little bit of texture. I'm going to add a little bit of VanDyke Brown on this left slope here and some towards the top, kind of in a jagged formation. And just a little bit off towards the left as well. And then from here, I want to add just a little bit of sap green. This is a very beautiful summer day in the North Cascades, and I do want just a few pops of this sap green to slightly overlap and blend into this mountaintop here. So I'm just tapping that in just a little bit with the tip of my brush just to give a little bit of irregular texture here. Okay, so from here, I just want to kind of take my brush that's slightly damp but clean and just smooth out any harsh edges. I want some of these blends and bleeds to be kind of soft. All right, and then from there, I'm gonna take some not VanDyke Brown, sorry, some Payne's Gray. I'm just gonna add a few touches of our Payne's Gray into this lower area, just to add a little bit of a coolness to the green and a little bit more dimension. I'm going to overlap maybe just a touch of the Perylene Green mixed in there as well. But this is just going to give the mountain a little bit more depth. From here, I just want to add a little bit of loose texture with the tip of my brush with whatever Payne's Gray is remaining. And I'm just going to add a little touch of it on the right side of the mountain here. Kind of drag it downward slightly with my brush. Then I'm going to add a little bit on this left area here, this little left miniature peak. Kind of slope it downward towards the left a little. And then I'm going to add just a touch of it on this peak as well. And then just a little bit of really loose mountain kind of texture here, just tapping in some brushwork and just keeping it super loose. Add a little bit up towards the top, just like that. Okay, so before I do anything else, I'm just going to take a little bit of VanDyke Brown, watered down, and just retouch a little bit of some brown and earth tone areas in here, just to add a touch of that brown. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and just allow this to set. And then once that's dry, we will go back in and add a couple pops of white for just a hint of a little bit of remaining snow. And then next, we're gonna move on to this left side of our mountains here. I'm gonna start with just a little bit of Perylene Green. Just filling that in. From here, I'm going to switch gears to my size 2 brush, and using the size 2 brush, I am just going to tap in a little bit of texture, just like so, mimicking some way far off pine trees in the distance. Okay, and then while that one dries, I'm going to move on to our lake. Actually, you'll notice with watercolor, I will hop around to different parts of the painting while the former part dries before we move on. So this is actually, I know this is going to be my favorite part because my favorite color ever is Cobalt Turquoise Light. It's so happy and pretty. I just love it. So to get started with our lake, I'm just taking my size 16 brush and filling in this lake silhouette with water. And I think our islands will definitely get submerged temporarily. That's not a problem. We can always repaint those in. It's okay if some of the green sketch bleeds in to the lake, since we're going to be adding a touch of green regardless. All right, our main color we're going to go ahead and get started with is going to be our Cobalt Turquoise Light, my favorite. So pretty. And this here, I'm just gonna go ahead and add and just go to town with it. Just really go strong with it. I'm adding a couple good solid brushfuls. Okay, so I'm just going along this shoreline of the lake where the mountains meet it. Such a pretty color. Okay, now from here, I want to get a little bit of Viridian Green. I'm still using my size 6 brush for now. And I just want to apply some Viridian Green, starting off below this mountain and just kind of drag it slightly down. And I'm going to do the same thing just along this shoreline here, just incorporating some of that vibrant green, allowing it to bleed into the cobalt turquoise. So I'm just going alongside this right area as well. Before I do anything else, I'm going to layer just a second coat of the cobalt turquoise just on this inside area mostly. So now we've got kind of a soft blend of the two colors. And then from here, I'm just going to take my size 6 brush and just take a very small amount of Prussian blue. And with that, I want to add in just a third blue color. I'm going to start over here towards the left and let it kind of bleed out. I'm going to go and add some on this inside area, just below the mountain we painted. And then some on this inside, kind of pointed areas of the shoreline. I'm just incorporating just a little bit of Prussian blue as well. And then I'm just going to add a couple hints of it within the center of the lake, just to add some variegation into the lake color, but not overdoing it too much, because I really want the cobalt turquoise to shine the most. So just adding just a couple hints of that. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and let this area fully dry, and then when we come back, we will move on to more mountains. Okay, so now that my lake is dry, I'm going to take some watered down VanDyke Brown, and using my size 16 brush this time, I want to just do a light wash with this color just to incorporate a hint of earthy brown. So I'm just gonna add some just like that. Just a really nice kind of pale coat. That way we don't get any kind of white undertone in the background. I kind of just want this to be our base coat. And if your VanDyke Brown is looking a little too dark, you can always mix in some more water, even on top of the page here, just to help dilute it and spread it about. Add a little bit more in here. Okay. And then in this area, I'm gonna just add a really light watery amount. We're gonna have a vibrant olive green shade here for our tree, so I don't want the color to be too dark over here. And then I'm just gonna carry on and do the same thing over here as well. Alrighty, so now I want to start with some olive green. And I want to apply it while our area is still slightly damp. It's okay if it's a little bit dry, but we'll just keep going here. And I'm just kind of blotting this vibrant green in, starting in this lower area. As we get more down, I want to keep some of the brown showing towards the shoreline just a bit. And before we forget about our little islands, I'm just gonna blot in some vibrant olive green, very concentrated here. Towards the top, I'm just tapping the tip of my brush just to give the illusion of pine trees. And then off towards the right, I'm just going to do a smaller little blob of texture green for our secondary island. Now I'm just going to apply just a few areas of this vibrant green. And again, I'm going to leave some areas of the shore kind of more blank with the brown. We can always re-add in some more brown if needed. So here I'm just adding this really loose texture of our green, allowing some areas of the brown to show through. And go all the way to the top here with our green. And with the tip of my brush, I'm simply just going to add a little bit of texture with really light pressure, mimicking some pine trees off in the distance. All right, next I'm going to take some Perylene Green. I'm going to start by building this area here towards the right and sloping it downward, giving a little bit of division between some of the mountains. Then I'm just going to add a few bits of texture of the Perylene Green inside of this green area and alongside this shoreline. But I'm not going too crazy with it because I don't want to overpower the olive green too much. Just adding a little bit of it in here. Okay. All right, next up, I want to add just a little bit more Perylene Green. Right in here. Again, you can just see I'm just repetitiously applying this like almost dot-like texture slightly. I bring it down a little bit closer to the shoreline here, just on this border. And I'm also going to bring some right on this shoreline towards the left here. And then I'm just going to do a second layering of the Perylene Green in that area that we first applied. And a little bit up here as well. And a little bit more down here. Okay. So from here, I want to add just a touch of Payne's Gray. And a little goes a long way. I'm going to layer in a little bit of Payne's Gray into this area just to add a little bit more depth. And I'll add just a couple touches of it up above here. Okay, I'll go ahead and let that area set. I'm going to move on to this area here. I'm going to start with a nice wash of olive green. And then from here, I'm gonna take my olive green and actually utilize my size 2 brush. So switching gears just a little bit. And I wanna actually have a few slightly more detailed pine trees popping out here. So using really light pressure, I'm just adding a couple more pronounced vertical dash lines, if you will, and then just texturizing a little bit on the edges. The dash lines act as some trunks. And then off towards the left, before I move on towards this area, I'm just going to texturize a little bit off towards the left, just to give some like more tree-like texture kind of popping through there. All right, and then in a few areas, I think I just grabbed some Perylene Green. Oops, that's okay. All right, and then in just a few of the areas, instead of some more pronounced trees, I'm just gonna do that really simple texture of kind of the dash lines, like so. And then randomly, I may have a pop of a taller tree be more pronounced. So just doing a vertical dash line and then adding a little bit of texture on either side. I'll do a second little one off towards the right. Okay. Alrighty, so now I just want to switch gears and add a few touches of Perylene Green just to kind of dab into some of this olive green and allow it to bleed out. This is just going to add a lot of loose texture and more dimension into this area. And then I'm going to grab just a touch of VanDyke Brown. And I'm just going to add a couple little areas of more brown kind of popped into here. All right, and before this area above dries up, I'm going to add a little bit more VanDyke Brown into some of these lighter areas just to layer it up and kind of soften some of the transitions here. I'm going to add a little bit more VanDyke Brown towards the shoreline. Maybe just a little bit blotted into here as well. And then I'll take a little bit more sap green just to kind of layer and blot into this forefront mountain. And I'll take a little bit more to apply just above here as well. Okay, so now moving on, we are going to do this mountain here. I'm going to start with a wash of olive green. I'm going to leave a little bit of a brown patch over here that we'll get to in a bit. So just about that big, kind of sloping down the mountain slightly. And similar process, I'm just going to start with this wash. I'm going to leave a couple areas of the shoreline brown that we'll add more brown to in a bit. All right, and I'm going to start by incorporating some Perylene Green in this lower left area. Add a little bit more inward here. Allow it to kind of slope upward. Then I'm going to take a little bit of Payne's Gray and just layer some towards this bottom base area. And I'm just going to add just a touch of it up here as well, adding some nice texture. And then I'll just take the tip of my brush and I want to add actually some more olive green so that way it's not too dark. And I'm just going to add a little bit of texture mimicking some far off distance pine trees. And I'm just carrying that forth all the way down the mountain. I'm just going to add a little bit more Payne's Gray just down below the slope here. And I'll just let this kind of sit and hang out. We may come back to it. We'll kind of see how it turns out there. All right, and then next I'm just going to carry on and do a wash of olive green. And I'm just going to leave a little bit of the shoreline just blank with that brown color. I'm going to get a little bit more of a concentrated amount of olive green just in this area here. Then take my size 2 brush, just to hop over to a new brush real quick and just tap in some of that pine tree texture. Just lightly tapping my brush. Okay, Now we'll switch back to our size 6 brush, and I just want to apply some Perylene Green off towards the left here. I'm gonna add some more towards the base. And I'm just texturizing it slightly into the brighter olive green just above there. All right, and then I'm going to take a little bit more just plain olive green and just apply it texturized into this area that's nice and light. Just give that a little bit more pop of vibrancy, allowing some of the texture to still show. And then I'm going to take a little bit of our Payne's gray here and just apply our Payne's gray just like so. I'm going to add a little bit more of it down in here. Okay. Next up, I want to take just a little bit of VanDyke Brown and just fill this brown area with a little second layer of some brown. I'm also going to add a touch of more brown down here where our shoreline is. And here as well. I'm going to layer in a little bit more brown off towards the right here as well. And also at the base of our little islands, just want to add a touch of brown. Okay. I'm going to add a little bit over towards the left here too, in a nice concentrated dark amount. Do the same thing kind of at the bottom base here, just kind of giving a little bit more outline and contrast of the dark brown in certain areas. Okay. So before we officially finish, I want to add just a couple flecks of white to our mountain in the distance. And so just using the size 2 brush, I'm just going to take that and add just a little bit of white. I'm going to rinse off my size 2 brush first. All right, so I'm just using whatever is in the cap of my white gouache here. All right, and I'm just gonna tap in just a very slight amount of white. Like there's just the hint of whatever was remaining. I'm just doing kind of an irregular shape there, maybe just a little bit off towards the left as well. And just a hint over here too. So this is like the very tail end of spring into summer. I'm just gonna add a little bit over here as well. Just gonna kind of buff that out just a little bit. And then just a hint down below. Okay, I like how that came out. It looks like we have a bit of a bloom forming here, so I'm just going to take my brush and just kind of tap that out, some of the pooling of the water. Not a big deal, that happens. And I'll re-add in a little bit of brown just to help that out a little. I'm just going to lightly texturize this area. And then add just a finishing touch of Payne's gray right in here. And a little off towards the right there. It's always good to just take a second look and step back and see where you may need to add something, maybe some texture or just another layer of shading. I hope that you enjoyed this watercolor landscape tutorial of Diablo Lake in North Cascades National Park in Washington. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel to not miss any further watercolor tutorials, and be sure to check out some of my other Washington National Park tutorials of Olympic National Park and Mount Rainier as well.